The quiet exhaustion. You know that feeling. You've just spent the afternoon at your parents' house or maybe a weekend back in your hometown. You walked in as a functional, independent adult, someone who pays bills, manages projects, and navigates the complexities of the modern world. But the moment you stepped over that threshold, something shifted. By the time you get back to your own car or lock the door to your own apartment, you weren't just tired, you're depleted. It's a specific kind of soul-deep exhaustion that sleep can't quite fix. It's the feeling of having been on for 48 hours straight, but you weren't on stage, you were just sitting in a living room. Why is it that the people who are supposed to know us best are often the ones who leave us feeling the most hollow? Why does an afternoon of doing nothing with family feel more taxing than a 60-hour work week? If you've ever felt like a ghost of yourself after a family gathering, or if you find yourself needing a recovery day just to process a simple Sunday dinner, you aren't ungrateful, and you aren't alone. Today, we're peeling back the wallpaper of the family home to look at the invisible psychological labor of being a daughter, a son, or a sibling, and why going home is often the hardest work we'll ever do. The time machine effect. Think back to the last time you visited. There's a sensory map to these visits, isn't there? The specific way the floorboards creak in the hallway, the hum of a refrigerator that's been running since the late 90s, the sight of your old high school trophies gathering dust on a shelf, or that one good chair no one is allowed to sit in. It's a nostalgic landscape, but it's also a psychological minefield. The moment you sit down at the kitchen table, the time machine effect kicks in. You might be 35 years old, but suddenly you're acting like you're 15 again. You find yourself getting defensive over a comment about your hair. You find yourself rolling your eyes when your mom asks if you're eating enough vegetables. You're trapped in a script you thought you'd burned a decade ago. This is the analog versus digital divide of the soul. In your real life, your digital, modern, chosen life, you are the architect of your identity. You choose your friends, your aesthetic, and your boundaries. But the family unit is often purely analog. It's physical, it's rooted in history, and it operates on legacy software. Your family doesn't see the version 2.0 or 5.0 of you. To them, you are still the child who was too sensitive, the loud one, or the one who always forgets their keys. The drain comes from the friction between who you actually are and the ghost version of you that your family insists on interacting with. You are spending every second of that visit manually overriding your old programming, and that, quite frankly, is exhausting. The burden of social enmeshment. To understand this exhaustion, we have to look at what psychologists call family systems theory. Developed by Dr. Murray Bowen, this concept suggests that individuals cannot be understood in isolation from one another, but rather as part of an emotional unit. Within this unit, there's a phenomenon called enmeshment. This happens when the boundaries between family members become blurred. In an enmeshed family, if mom is anxious, everyone has to be anxious. If dad is disappointed, the air in the room becomes heavy for everyone.
Okay.
When you
You're
enter
doing
this
great.
field, you aren't just
going.
managing your own emotions, you are subconsciously tuning yourself to the emotional frequency of the entire room. Research published in the Journal of Family Psychology often points to emotional labor as a primary driver of fatigue. When you're with family, you are performing a constant high-speed audit of the environment. You're tracking the subtle shifts in your father's tone, the unspoken tension between your
Wow, what a
siblings,
beautiful
and the
evening drive.
passive-aggressive
The sky is
weight of a
amazing
question
tonight.
about your
I could drive like this
relationship
forever.
status. Neuroscience tells us that our brains have a limited supply of cognitive control. Every time you bite your tongue to avoid an old argument or force a smile during a repetitive story, you're burning through your glucose reserves. You're using your prefrontal cortex to dampen the reactive signals from your amygdala. In simpler terms, your brain is working overtime to prevent a meltdown. Then there's the primal threat of rejection. Biologically, being cast out from the tribe used to mean death. Even if you're a successful adult, your lizard brain still perceives family conflict as a high-stakes survival event. You are hyper-vigilant because on some deep evolutionary level, you still need these people to like you. No wonder you want a nap for 3 days afterward. The cost of the mask. So how does this manifest in our actual lives? Why does it matter that we feel drained? The danger of this exhaustion is that it creates a resentment loop. Because we feel so depleted by our families, we start to dread seeing them. This dread leads to guilt, because we should love them. To compensate for the guilt, we try even harder to be the perfect child during the next visit, which drains us even more. This exhaustion often bleeds into our careers and our romantic lives. If you spend your weekends performing a role for your family, you might find yourself collapsing during the work week. You're irritable, you're indecisive, and your social battery is permanently in the red. For many of us, this family-induced drain leads to identity diffusion. You start to wonder, who am I really? Am I the confident professional I am on Tuesday, or am I the flumbling, insecure person I was on Sunday? This split-screen existence is a heavy burden to carry. It also impacts our boundaries. If you were raised in an environment where your drainage wasn't respected, where being tired was seen as being difficult, you likely struggle to say no in your adult life. You've been trained to prioritize the harmony of the group over the integrity of your own energy. You become a people pleaser not because you love people, but because you are terrified of the atmospheric shift that happens when you stop performing. The art of protecting your light. If you feel drained after being around family, I want you to hear this. It is not a sign that you are a bad person. It is a sign that you are a sensitive, complex human being who is trying to bridge the gap between two different worlds. There is a beautiful, albeit painful, poetic truth in this exhaustion. It proves that you have grown. If it didn't hurt to fit back into that old box, it would mean you hadn't outgrown it. The drain is actually the measurement of your expansion. It is the cost of evolution. We often think of family as a recharge station, but for many of us, it's more like a stress test, and that's okay. You can love someone deeply and still find them incredibly taxing. You can be grateful for your upbringing and still need to put 1,000 miles of emotional distance between your childhood bedroom and your current life. The goal isn't to stop being drained, it's to stop judging yourself for it. It's about learning to honor your own social battery as a sacred resource. It's about realizing that you don't owe anyone a version of yourself that no longer exists. You are allowed to be tired. You are allowed to leave early. You are allowed to take the adult version of yourself by the hand and lead them out of the room when the air gets too thin. Because at the end of the day, the most important home you will ever inhabit isn't the one with the creaky floorboards and the old photos on the wall. It's the one you've built inside yourself. If this felt like a mirror to your own experience, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What's the one thing that drains you the most during family visits? Sharing our stories is often the first step in reclaiming our energy. If you found value in this deep dive, consider subscribing to the channel. We're building a community here for the thinkers, the feelers, and everyone trying to navigate the beautiful mess of being human. Until next time, take a deep breath, protect your peace, and remember, you're doing just fine.